Macca's Guides.
Hey guys, Macca here with a video counting down the top 10 hardest games of 2019. Now I'm not going to talk too much about the rules, but I do want to talk about them briefly before getting right into the video. Now the things I considered when thinking about a hard game were obviously its difficulty, but I did also want to take into account the amount of time that was required. I wrote a little formula in Excel and it kind of decided the games for me in the list. Additionally, 2019 was a record year in terms of the amount of games that were released on the store, and since I can't possibly research every single game, I did have to eliminate obscure games from the list because it was just too hard to get any solid and reliable information on them. However, the side effect is that in this year's list, you should recognize a good majority of the games. Now, obviously, you can't talk about the hardest games of the year without talking about the easiest games of the year. I will have a separate video up for that within a couple of days after this video is uploaded. Don't worry, I'm working on it and making sure it's perfect. If you think I missed a game on my list, let me know in the comments down below. Let's just get started straight in with number 10, being the game Fishing Planet, requiring an absolute obscene amount of time to complete or a very deep pocket if you want to buy those microtransactions. Now to start, the game is absolutely free to play, which should give you a rough idea as to how they plan on actually monetizing this game. And the achievements here are almost impossible in terms of their length and commitment. You have to catch a lot of different fish, including 250 salmon, 250 carp, walleye, catfish, panfish, bass, pike, trout, and crappies. That is a lot of fish to catch just to start out with the list. Additionally, 100 of those fish have to be unique types of fish, and 1,000 of the fish need to be trophy level sized fish. And then you also have to qualify in a bunch of different tournaments, and they are really hard and very rare, as I understand. You have to get to the final round of the tournament 12 times and be the champion in the competition, top 3 winners 10 times in a row, which takes literally forever. In terms of skill, this one isn't actually that bad, which is why it's number 10 on our list. It is a fishing game, and fishing games can only be so difficult. Assuming that you take the time to upgrade or you spend the money to upgrade, you shouldn't have too much of an issue actually catching the fish, winning tournaments, and putting them in your trophy case. So that's why it's going to start off our list and not go much higher. In at the number 9 position, I have Remnant from the Ashes, which was a highly requested game to be added to the list from those on Twitter. And for this game, you are going to be required to do multiple playthroughs, and there is a lot of luck based. Additionally, because this is a Souls type game, it's just going to be naturally difficult in the way it's designed. In order to get the completion for this game, what you'll need to do is beat the game through one time on any difficulty and then re-roll to basically get into New Game Plus and then complete the game a second time. At this point, you basically just keep playing it over and over and over again until you get the items and bosses that you need to randomly spawn. Luckily, you don't actually need to pick a difficulty in this game so that it's harder. You just kind of play and play and play, but you will have to get really good at the game. Luckily, once you do get really good at the game, you should be able to fly through it pretty quickly, hopefully getting lucky enough to get one of those RNG-based achievements. But still, a little bit of grind and a lot of skill puts this in our number 9 position. Next up at number 8, we have a game called Wargroove, which has a lot of achievements that only have 1% of unlock rate or even lower. And the thing that's going to take you the longest and be the hardest in this game is to get all 200 available stars. You'll have to get 75 stars through arcade mode, 99 stars through story mode, 25 stars through puzzle mode, and then 1 final star unlocked by getting a secret character. Not only that, but you'll need to get an S rank on every single campaign mission in the game, which is not easy. This game is a turn-based strategy style game, and the amount of turns you take in any given scenario is what determines your rank. It can be very difficult to make sure you do it in as little turns as possible. Additionally, you will have to beat arcade mode on the hard difficulty. You'll need to unlock every item in the gallery and complete all of the arcade runs. These are not easy feats on their own, let alone doing all of them. You'll be playing the game for around 60 to 80 hours, and you'll need a lot of skill in order to do it, so that's why it's going to rank so high up on our list this year. Next on the list is a game that a lot of people may have experienced through Game Pass, and that is Void Bastards. And this will only take you around 20 to 40 hours. It actually doesn't take that long, but does require a fair bit of skill, and with that skill, probably a fair bit of patience to make sure that you don't mess it up once you start getting close. Now, for those who are unaware, this game is a first-person roguelike horror game in the style of like BioShock, and the developers classify this game as a strategy shooter that will test your wits and exercise your aim. You'll have to complete the game all the way through, and then you'll have to start completing the game on hard. Then you'll need to complete the game with no deaths. Then you'll need to complete the game on normal with only firearms, and then with only devices. You need to complete the game being completely unarmed. Then you also need to escape the game on normal without building any non-progress upgrades. You will also have to use the only indirect restriction, which means you can't directly shoot enemies. You have to shoot them indirectly. And then you'll also have to escape the nebula on Hard Bastard and escape on Hard Bastard with no deaths. If it wasn't obvious, Hard Bastard is the hardest difficulty in the game. There's normal, hard, and Hard Bastard. So you'll have to complete the game on the hardest difficulty without dying, plus complete it in all of these other different and unique ways on the lower difficulties. Each run on its own takes a fair bit of time, and all of that progress can be wiped out with only a single death. Next on the list we have Slay the Spire, a game that has been on my backlog since it came to Xbox Game Pass. It's a roguelike card strategy game, which will take the average person between 80 and 100 hours to complete. Now, each playthrough of the game actually isn't all that long. In fact, there's a speedrunning achievement for beating the entire game in under 20 minutes. Additionally, this is a card game where you're building a deck of cards to bring along from fight to fight with you, and there's an achievement for winning the game with less than 5 cards in your deck. You can imagine that can be pretty tough if you get a certain opponent, and since the opponents are somewhat random, you can really end a run pretty quickly if you have the wrong cards with you. You'll also have to level up quite drastically in order to get some of these other achievements, like being able to block for 999, as well as defeating a boss in only one single turn. You basically have to one-hit the boss. Now, on top of that, there's also a very difficult achievement for beating the entire game with only a single relic. A relic is basically an item that gives you a bonus for the rest of your run. You can only equip and use one relic for the entire run, which is basically going to be the first relic you get, and it's not going to be all that great comparative to some of the other relics you'll unlock later on in your run. The genre that this game is in is already quite difficult, and the achievement list in this game requires you to be an absolute master of the genre, so for that reason, it's this high on our list this year. Rounding off our top 5, I have Ace Combat 7, where things start to get even harder. This game only takes around 80 to 100 hours, but does require a significant amount of skill, and that skill must be in the flight genre, which is a little bit of an acquired taste and can take a long time to get accustomed to. What you'll need to do is beat the campaign on any difficulty in order to unlock the hardest difficulty in the game, which is the Ace difficulty. Once you have that unlocked, you'll need to complete every mission in the campaign, which can last about 15 hours, while earning an S rank, which is basically getting a perfect score. You'll also need to make sure that you beat the campaign on every difficulty, including easy, normal, hard, and ace, so you'll need to do the campaign a total of 4 times at minimum. You'll also need to try to get things like completing the campaign without taking a single hit, and completing the campaign using only a machine gun. You can imagine that some of the levels that are designed for bombers can be very hard with a machine gun. While you play through, you'll also be earning the in-game currency, and eventually you'll need to buy every single item in the item shop, which will take a little bit of grinding, even if you're good enough to complete the game with S ranks. And then last but not least, you'll need to fly a total of 76,000 kilometers, which is a lot. You'll need to grind that one out and basically fly in a straight line for an equivalent of 40 hours or so. Watching gameplay of someone who's good at this game play on the hardest difficulty and get an S rank is seriously impressive, and takes an incredible amount of practice and skill, and for that reason, we're going to round off our number 5 with Ace Combat 7. In at the number 4 position is a game that I am glad to say that I have personally completed. It's very rare that I complete one of the games on our top 10 hardest list, and that is Descenders, where a large amount of the achievements on Xbox Live have a 0.01% unlock percentage, and for good reason. So Descenders is a 3D downhill mountain biking game, but it's designed in a roguelike way, meaning that the levels are kind of different every time you play, but a little bit the same, so you can't really memorize the levels exactly. Additionally, as you play, you will unlock upgrades for your character, but those upgrades can be different every run as well. The game is also designed in a way where there are bike mechanics, and then everything is just based off of the world physics in the game. So your bike won't naturally want to straighten out. You have to land straight every single time, or else you'll smack your head on the handlebars and lose a life. Now, if you do end up addicted to the game like me and want to go for the completion, you'll have to do a variety of tasks, but beating the game is a good place to start, and doing all the specific tricks that the game wants you to do is also another thing you might want to focus on. Eventually, what you'll need to do is do a run from the very start to the very end all at once, and that is called being a true Descender. That is a difficult achievement, but it gets much harder. What you'll need to do is complete that entire run without bailing a single time. And in my experience, the average run lasts about 40 minutes, and it can be extremely easy to make a small mistake and lose a life. You'll also need to complete the entire Career Plus mode in one session, and there are these kind of variants called fire nodes, where you can make all of the boss jumps even harder by incorporating a fire ring into them, where you have to shoot perfectly and cleanly through them. Doing all of the fire nodes in a run unlocks a secret level called the Volcano, and you'll need to also do the Volcano in order to get your completion. Probably the hardest achievement in the game is for completing all of the bonus worlds. The way the game works is that you choose on a map random points, and eventually you can find bonus worlds in each of the areas. Finding a bonus world allows you to try it, but each bonus world on its own is extremely difficult, and you'll have a certain amount of lives that you have in order to try to complete it. Now, there are a total of 5 bonus worlds. Reaching the first couple isn't hard at all, but reaching the one on the final level called Peaks, or in the secret world called Volcano, is extremely difficult, and once you even reach those, it can be extremely difficult to beat them. For example, the Volcano one took me an hour of practice just to complete for one time when I had infinite lives in practice mode. Now, let's say you're good enough to get all of that done. You are not done quite yet, as the developer put in a troll achievement worth 0 gamer score, dependent 100% purely on luck. So as you play, you earn points, and as you earn a certain amount of points, like 50,000, you get a chance at earning a rare item, a 1 in 5 chance. There are a total of 80 or so rare items, so you have a 1 in 5 chance at getting 1 in 80 items, and the game wants you to get one very specific item called the Whoopee Cushion. One attempt at having a 1 in 5 of 1 in 80 chance takes around 15 minutes, so if you want to be certain that you'll get it, you'll have to boost this one achievement for at least 100 hours. Now, I got very lucky on stream and did it in only about 40. Let's find out. Feel free to give Descenders a try, but don't aim for that completion, as it can be extremely frustrating on that last 0 pointer if you don't get as lucky as some others. But let's move on. Moving on to number 3 on our list is a game that I bet a bunch of you have tried, many of you have not completed, but hopefully a fair bit of you have, and that is Sakura. This game is most well known for being incredibly difficult, although I think it should be well known for being an incredibly well made and fun to play game. You'll be required to get very good at the genre in a very complex and hard to navigate world, and you'll need to complete the hardest boss battles in the entire game in order to get all of the different endings that you can get. Now, the completion percentage for this game is actually somewhat high. It's a lot higher than a lot of the other games on our list, but I have a sneaking suspicion that a lot of people just flat out skip this game for the fact that they thought it would be too hard for them, kind of bringing our average up a little higher than it should be. The reality is most of the people who try this game never actually end up beating the first boss. You'll spend a decent amount of time practicing against bosses, learning their patterns, learning the timing of the attacks and the parries or blocks, and then finding opportunities to strike back, working on their posture in order to break them instead of having to worry about their entire health bar. Now, luckily, once you kind of get the hang of this game, it gets a little bit easier and easier, and on subsequent playthroughs, you can breeze through the game in just a couple of hours. Nonetheless, it can still be very difficult to get the good ending of the game, and I would challenge you to give this game a try if you have the time and money. Next up, probably not a surprise for anyone, but maybe a surprise that it's not at number 1, is Gears 5 with the Seriously 5.0 achievement. You'll start off by doing the campaign on the hardest difficulty, making sure to grab every single piece of collectible and component and relic weapon and every other thing you can grab. That part isn't actually all that difficult though. After that, what you'll have to do is switch your focus to Horde and to Escape, and you'll need to master both all of the maps and all of the characters in both of these modes. This can take a very long amount of time, but also requires a decent amount of skill, as you will be playing on the hardest difficulties. Also, don't forget you'll have to complete an escape map on the hardest difficulty without firing a single bullet, so you'll need to grab a couple of teammates who are also at a very high skill level. Alright, so you've completed the campaign on Insane, mastered the 7 Horde maps, the 4 escape maps, the 6 Horde characters, and the 3 escape characters. We still have a little bit more to go, and for that what we need to do is reach level 100 and re-up a total of 20 times. Even with the most efficient boosting methods around, you're still looking at probably 80 hours to do this alone if you do nothing but boost levels. The criteria for Seriously achievements is always a little bit crazy, and Gears 5 is no different. But this year there was one single game that I thought was harder, and that is Devil May Cry 5. Now, the Devil May Cry 5 achievement and trophy completion is purely dependent on beating all of the different difficulty modes of the game. When you first start, there are 2 difficulties: easy, known as Human, and medium, known as Devil Hunter. Completing the game on Devil Hunter will unlock the hard mode, or Son of Sparta, and this will change how the enemies behave in combat. Completing this mode will unlock some more difficulties, including Heaven and Hell, where all enemies die in one hit, but so do you, meaning you have to basically beat the game without getting hit. You'll also unlock a difficulty called Dante Must Die, where all of the enemies do double damage and have double health. Additionally, enemies will be granted new special attacks that they previously did not use. As a whole, combat will be incredibly difficult. So now imagine yourself in a game on the hard difficulty where all of the enemies have double health and do double damage, and now you have to S rank the entire game. Easily the hardest achievement or trophy in the game. However, if that didn't sound hard enough, there is also a Hell and Hell difficulty, where although you die in one single hit, the enemies do not. They die in the normal amount of hits on the hard setting. Basically meaning you have to beat the game on hard without getting hit, all 20 levels. Oh, and by the way, in this mode, they completely remove checkpoints in the mission. Now, no doubt there are some hardcores out there who can get this done, but I am definitely not one of them. Maybe you are, or maybe you've completed one of the other games we've discussed today, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments down below. But nonetheless, thank you so much for watching. I hope the video was enjoyable. Drop a like, subscribe for future content. Special thanks to everyone on Patreon for supporting the show. Shout out to Double O, and hopefully I see you soon. Peace.